Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving deep into the Canadian Electrical Code, specifically looking at a rule that might seem small but has big implications. Rule 28-308, all about overload protection for small motors. If you've ever wondered why some tiny motors don't need a separate overload device, this video is for you. So, what exactly does Rule 28-308 say? In a nutshell, it provides exemptions for overload protection on certain small motors. Normally, every motor needs overload protection to prevent it from overheating and burning out under excessive load. But this rule carves out some specific exceptions, which can save time and money on an installation, as long as you meet the conditions. Let's break down the first scenario. The rule applies to motors with a full load current rating of 1 ampere or less. Think about those tiny motors in things like small exhaust fans, timers, or certain control relays. If the motor is rated at 1 amp or less, you might not need a separate overload device. This is a common situation, especially in residential or light commercial settings. Now, there's another key condition tied to this. The rule often ties into the branch circuit overcurrent protection. For these small motors, the breaker or fuse protecting the entire circuit is sometimes considered sufficient protection for the motor itself. For example, if you have a small motor on a 15 amp circuit, the code might permit that 15 amp breaker to also serve as the motor's protection, provided the motor meets the specific criteria outlined in the rule. So, let's look at the why. Why does the code allow this? It's all about risk assessment and the inherent characteristics of these small motors. A very small motor is less likely to cause a major hazard even if it does overheat. Its failure is typically self-contained. Also, many of these motors are what we call impedance protected. This means their own internal electrical resistance, or impedance, is high enough to limit the current flow even under locked rotor conditions. The motor is designed so it won't draw enough current to immediately trip a standard 15 amp breaker, but it also won't get hot enough to start a fire before it fails. Let's walk through a practical example. Imagine you're installing a small bathroom exhaust fan. The motor on this fan has a full load amp rating of, say, 0.8 amps. It's connected to a 15 amp lighting circuit. According to Rule 28-308, because the motor's rating is less than 1 amp and it's on a standard branch circuit, you likely don't need to install a separate dedicated overload heater or electronic overload relay just for that fan motor. The 15 amp circuit breaker is deemed adequate protection against short circuits and ground faults, and the motor's own design protects it from simple overload. However, it's crucial to remember that this is not a blanket rule for all small motors. You always have to read the rule carefully and consider all the sub-rules. For instance, are there any other loads on the circuit? What does the manufacturer's instruction for the motor or the appliance say? The manufacturer's specs are king. If they require specific overload protection, you must follow their instructions, regardless of what the code might otherwise permit. Another important point is the difference between overload protection and overcurrent protection. A circuit breaker protects against overcurrent, that's short circuits and ground faults, which are huge, sudden surges of current. Overload protection is for situations where the motor is drawing a little too much current for too long, causing it to overheat gradually. Rule 28-308 is specifically about waiving the requirement for that separate overload device, not the main circuit breaker. So, to wrap it all up, Rule 28-308 is a practical and useful part of the Canadian Electrical Code that simplifies installations for very small motors, typically those rated 1 amp or less. It recognizes that for these specific applications, the risk is low, and the branch circuit overcurrent device can often provide sufficient protection. But remember, always verify the motor's rating, check the manufacturer's requirements, and read the code rule in its entirety to ensure your installation is safe and compliant. I hope this breakdown helps clear things up. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the electrical code. Got a question or another rule you want me to cover? Drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.